Hello everyone, this is Karen.
Welcome back everybody, this is Shane.
Today we're looking at day 2 of Ignaz Semmelweis, a pioneer of hand washing. And the vocabulary words are medical.
Medical.
Monica's parents are proud of her for getting into medical school.
Good job, Monica. Rude.
Rude.
Several customers complained that the waiter was rude to them.
Aww. Ignore.
Ignore.
The head of the company ignored the workers' worries about the new policy.
Mental.
Mental.
Being stuck inside for weeks has started to have an effect on Tony's mental health.
Theory.
Theory.
The study seems to support the scientist's theory. So we're still talking about Ignaz Semmelweis, right?
Yes.
He tried to convince the doctors that, it's because they're getting this infection because of the germs.
Right.
So hand washing is very, very important.
Right.
But
So he found there was a link between not washing your hands and spreading disease.
that's right.
But nobody believed him.
And people back in the days, they didn't really understand germs. They haven't discovered germs yet.
Yeah, there wasn't like a germ theory yet. So unfortunately, he had a bad personality too. He wasn't very likable.
He wasn't very nice when he was trying to convince people.
So people didn't really listen to him.
And he got fired.
He got fired, and he tried to convince people for like 19 years. And
I know.
finally, he just gave up and went crazy.
And then he went to a mental hospital.
It's so sad.
It is. But I think, 20 years later.
But you forgot, the saddest thing is he died.
Yeah, I know.
Died of a disease that was kind of like the same kind of disease that he
That cost him his career.
That cost him, because so sad.
I know. But 20 years later, and people discover, oh yeah, okay, well, I guess, germs, can't cause infections.
Right.
And then people start thinking, oh yeah, I guess he was right all along.
Well, yeah. So at least his name was cleared, right?
That's right.
And now he's somebody that we look back on in history is quite important.
That's right.
Poor guy.
I know. I will remember you, Ignaz Semmelweis.
Ignaz, good job, buddy.
Thank you.
Ignaz Semmelweis, a pioneer of hand washing.
When Semmelweis tried to tell the medical community about the importance of hand washing, they rejected his ideas. Back then, scientists had not discovered germs yet. The doctors thought that washing their hands had nothing to do with avoiding infection, and many argued with Semmelweis.
Today's lesson is called Ignaz Semmelweis, a pioneer of hand washing. Part 2. Hi everyone, my name is Jeff.
And I'm Mike. And yesterday we learned that this Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis, about 160, 70 years ago in the 1840s, noticed that doctors who help women have babies made those women sick because they weren't washing their hands. So he got the doctors and other people in the hospital to wash their hands. The women didn't get sick, and this seemed like a really good thing and something we would say, of course, today. Well, yeah, washing your hands when you're a doctor is something you should definitely do, or a nurse, or anyone. Washing your hands can stop diseases from spreading.
You're talking about the present though, Mike.
Sure.
In the past,
This was a crazy idea.
People thought this might be weird or strange or crazy. And get this, when Semmelweis tried to tell the medical community about the importance of hand washing, they rejected his idea. So everyone, you should wash your hands. I did it in my hospital, had great results. You should do the same. The medical community, they said, no, we're not going to.
They don't like soap. They're lazy. They can't find any water.
I think they were still thinking about things like miasma and stuff like that.
They just didn't have good science. That's right. And this wasn't just average normal people. This was people in the medical community, the people you would think would listen to another doctor, because medical is the adjective for things about medicine, hospitals, Doctors. If you're a doctor or a nurse, you're a medical worker. A medical institution would be something like a hospital. And medical research is coming up with new medicines and new ways of making people healthy. Medical is about health, hospitals, sickness, doctors, that kind of stuff. For example, Monica's parents are proud of her for getting into medical school, the kind of school people go to when they want to become doctors.
There you go.
So, the medical community said, washing your hands? Nah, that's crazy. Why did they say this? Well, we read, back then, scientists had not discovered germs yet. The whole idea of germs on your hand or on things, the whole reason we wash our hands to get rid of germs, they didn't know what germs were at all.
They thought that like the sickness would be like in a cloud, like floating in the air or something like that. They didn't know what they were talking about. So the doctors thought that washing their hands had nothing to do with avoiding infection. And many argued with Semmelweis. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. You are a crackpot there, Semmelweis. You know nothing. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be back after this.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。塞莫怀斯是鼓励洗手的先驱，不过其实他一开始要告诉医界洗手的重要性时，大家都拒绝他的看法，因为当时科学家还没有发现细菌，大家不知道什么是细菌呢？他们认为疾病是胀气造成的，不是肚子胀气那个胀气。好，Jeff 老师刚刚他有说到 miasma 或者是念 miasma，M-I-A-S-M-A 就是胀气，它是指说由污水啊或者是废弃物等等所散发出来的那种臭气、有害空气。那人们认为这种胀气就是造成传染病的原因。好，他们就觉得说洗手跟避免感染一点关系都没有。于是呢，当时医界就有很多人跟塞莫怀斯争论，可能都觉得他是个怪咖吧。好，这时候我们来看个单词 medical， 它就是形容医学的、医疗的。而 Jeff 老师刚刚用到 crackpot，crackpot，crackpot 就是用来描述怪咖、怪胎或是疯子。接话课文中。
Ignaz Semmelweis, a pioneer of hand washing.
For his part, Semmelweis did himself no favors. He was so rude to those who disagreed with him that he got himself fired. He continued to insist that medical workers everywhere across Europe should change their ways, but they ignored him along with the evidence that proved him right. After 19 years, Semmelweis finally gave up. He ended up in a mental hospital where he died 2 weeks later from an infection like the one that had cost him his career.
Okay, so Semmelweis very nicely said, hey guys, you should wash your hands. It's good for you. He did say that, but he did not say that nicely. In fact, this guy Semmelweis, he was kind of disagreeable. Yes, for his part, Semmelweis did himself no favors.
Oh, okay. If you do yourself no favors, you're kind of hurting yourself. So you're trying to help someone, but you're not doing it in a very nice way. So people might not listen to you just because you're not nice. That sounds like what happened. It says he was so rude to those who disagreed with him that he got himself fired.
So he wasn't just disagreeable, he was rude to other people, especially those who disagreed with him.
So instead of saying, excuse me, gentlemen, it would be a good idea if we washed our hands, he said, hey, you dummies, you jerks, you idiots, wash your hands or you're stupid. And they were like, no, that's not nice. You're very rude.
You can't talk to me like that, Semmelweis.
He wasn't doing himself any favors.
Anyways, here we do have the word rude to talk about. It's an adjective. If you're rude, you are impolite. You have bad manners. You say things to people that make them uncomfortable. You say things that are offensive. You do things that bother other people. For example, several customers complained that the waiter was rude to them. Yes, he said nasty things, so on and so forth. They didn't like it. That was one rude waiter.
That waiter is not doing himself any favors. He won't get a tip and he'll get a bad review on Google. Anyway, so he got fired from his job, not because of bad science, but just because he was a very rude person. Well, that didn't stop him though. He wanted people to listen. It says he continued to insist that medical workers everywhere across Europe should change their ways. But they ignored him, along with the advice that proved him right.
The evidence that proved him right.
The evidence that proved him right. So he continued to say this. He continued to say doctors, nurses, everyone should wash their hands, change your ways. But people just weren't listening. They ignored him. They weren't paying attention to him. When you ignore something, it's something that's there, something that's probably important, something you need to notice and focus on and give attention to, but you're like, no care.
I'm gonna act like it's not there.
Exactly. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you don't understand how important it is. Maybe you're lazy and you're ignoring your homework because you'd rather play video games or something, but it's important and you need to do it generally, but ignoring it is choosing not to do it. For example, the head of the company ignored the workers' worries about the new policy. The staff were going, "Boss, we don't think this is good." He's like, "I don't care, we're doing it. I'm not listening to you, I'm ignoring you."
Anyways, Semmelweis really believed in his ideas and in science. It's just too bad that he was kind of a mean guy, a rude guy. But he did fight hard for his ideas, but after 19 years of fighting, Semmelweis finally gave up.
19 years?
Yep, and he ended up in a mental hospital where he died 2 weeks later from an infection like the one that had cost him his career.
Oh my
gosh. So people thought he was crazy, so they put him in a mental hospital, and apparently the doctors there, they didn't wash their hands, so he ended up getting an infection, and it killed him, just like this, like the disease that was killing those new mothers. How terrible, how ironic. Anyways, here we have this word mental to talk about. Mental means of or having to do with the mind and not the body, okay? When you're talking about the body, the adjective would be physical. When you're talking about the mind and thinking and stuff like that, the adjective is mental. For example, being stuck inside for weeks has started to have an effect on Tony's mental health. He's starting to get depressed. He feels bad psychologically. Hopefully he doesn't end up in a mental hospital. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be back soon.
好，刚刚说大家拒绝接受塞默怀斯的看法，而他自己的表达方式也很有问题。他对于不认同他的人很无理，然后结果就害自己被开除了。后来他还是继续坚持主张欧洲各地的医疗工作者要改变做法，但是大家都不理他。19年后呢，他终于放弃了，那最后进了一间精神病院。我们先来看3个单字 ，rude。它是形容无理的、粗鲁的。Charles 老师说的 disagreeable 则是形容难相处的、令人不悦的或是讨厌的。好，那么下一个单字 ignore 这个动词它表示忽视、不理会。那么 mental 是形容心理的、精神上的。mental hospital 就是指精神病院。好，另外我们也可以用 psychological 来形容心理的、精神上的。那这个字是拼作 psychological。那副词就是在后面加上 ly 变成 psychologically， 表示心理上、精神上。好，那刚刚说到塞默怀斯最后进了精神病院，2周后他在那边死于一种感染症，那就跟那个让他付出职业代价的感染症一样。好，这边用到3个重点，第一个 end up 就表示结果怎么样，最后怎么样。那后面它可以接介系词片语或者是名词或现在分词，比如 They were supposed to go to the library, but they ended up playing video games at home. 他们本来应该要去图书馆，但最后却是在家打电动。第二个重点 课文用到关系副词 where 来引导关系子句去补充说明指称地点的先行词，那么 where 就相当于介系词加上 which。例如 Hank spent his entire summer vacation in Pingdong, where his grandparents live. Hank 整个暑假都在屏东度过，那是他爷爷奶奶住的地方。第三个重点 ，cost 当动词的时候，它的三态同形。当我们用 cost somebody something， 就表示使某人失去什么，使某人付出什么样的代价。例如 His bad attitude cost him his job. 他的不良态度害他丢了工作。好，接回课文中。
Ignaz Semmelweis, a pioneer of hand washing.
20 years after Semmelweis's death, scientists discovered the theory of germs. Slowly, the world realized the value of what he had been saying, and hand washing became common practice in hospitals. This saved countless lives, but sadly, it happened too late to save Semmelweis.
So there you have it, Semmelweis. He ends up dying in a mental hospital of an infection that could have probably not happened if people just washed their hands.
Exactly, because of the germs that people were passing around with their dirty hands. But again, then they didn't know about germs, and we read 20 years after Semmelweis's death, scientists discovered the theory of germs. A theory is like an idea based on what you know, what you believe, what you've noticed, and you come up with a way of explaining things. It's only a theory, though, after you do the experiments and tests and have the information, have the proof, then that theory will become a fact. So it took 20 more years, and then probably a few years after that till they were able to see germs and test for them and all that stuff that, of course, we use today, which tells us today why we should wash our hands. All right, let's look at this word theory. We have an example sentence for this noun. The study seems to support the scientist's theory. Studies, experiments, tests, they will do these to find support or to find that theories are not correct. And then they'll come up with a new theory. Anyways,
Semmelweis.
Semmelweis was correct.
Yes.
So slowly we read, slowly the world realized the value of what he had been saying. And hand washing became common practice in hospitals and homes and kitchens and restaurants and many other places.
Semmelweis. He was so right, and he ended up dying in a mental hospital, but he wasn't crazy at all. Yes, he was a pioneer of hand washing. What a great guy. Hand washing. It's the thing to do. This saved countless lives, but sadly, it happened too late to save Semmelweis. He was already dead of an infection that he probably didn't need to get. All right, folks, that's it for our article on Ignaz Semmelweis, but we still have the what do you think question. Hey, Mike, why do you think many people argued with Semmelweis about his theory?
Well, I'd say people disagreed with Semmelweis because he was trying to show them something that was so different from the things they believed, it was hard for them to make the jump, to try to even understand. Plus, because he was rude about it, that probably made it harder for people, or they were unwilling. They didn't want to listen to him at all anyways.
Yeah,
So there
what
you
a
go.
shame.
A difficult message delivered in a bad way, and people were like, we don't care.
So sad.
Yeah.
All right, folks, with that, our lesson is now in the books, and it's time for us to say bye-bye.
Wash your hands.
Ta-ta.
塞默怀斯过世20年之后，科学家才发现病菌的理论，那世人逐渐了解到洗手的重要性，洗手也成了医院里面常见的做法，拯救了无数生命。可惜这件事情发生太晚，救不了塞默怀斯自己。好，我们先来看单字 theory。Theory 就表示理论、学说或是观点。那么 Mike 老师刚刚提到啊，也许塞默怀斯他无理的表达方式，也让大家更不愿意听他的建议。那么老师有用到 unwilling 这个形容词，就是形容不情愿的、不愿意的。这个字是拼作 unwilling，unwilling。 好，那我们刚刚有说发生的太晚而救不了塞莫怀斯，这时候课文用的句型是 to 加原形动词，就是 too 什么什么 to 加原形动词来表达太怎么样而无法怎么样。那这个用法呢，它带有否定含义。too 后面可以接形容词或副词，例如 I'm too tired to go shopping with them。我太累了，没办法跟他们一起去逛街。好，那么以上这些讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
各位同学，大家好，我是季安老师。我们今天带大家看照片描述常见的词汇、必备的词汇哦。OK， 来，直接开始喽。不懂的单字就暂停，然后呢，把它抄下来。这些一般大家比较不熟一点了啊。OK， 来，直接开始喽。
A. The man is repairing machinery. B. The worker is loading some boxes into the truck. C. The man is busy wrapping boxes in plastic. D. Some traffic cones are placed around the building.
不熟的话再播一次哈。Alright， 这题答案呢是 B. The worker is loading some boxes into the truck. 好，这个工人呢，他把一些箱子 load 装载到卡车里面，所以答案是 B。其他 repairing machinery， 他在修东西吗？看不出来。The man is busy wrapping boxes in plastic， 用塑胶那种塑胶透明的东西把这个箱子包起来，并没有。猪 Some traffic cones are placed around the building. Traffic cone 就是那个交通的那种立锥，三角锥、立锥这样警示用的那一种。好，下一题。
A. The foreman is supervising some workers. B. The factory is under construction. C. An assembly line is being shut down. D. The man's operating the machinery.
Alright， 还蛮明显的。最后一个 ，The man is operating the machinery。这个就是比较笼统的说法，他在操作机械，什么机械其实你也说不出来所以 machinery、machine 都可以来 foreman 的话是工头 ，OK， 工头就是主要的那个工班工头 is supervising some workers， 但是这边我没有看到一些 worker 嘛，对不对 ？some workers 除非你觉得这个机器人是 worker supervise 监督他们。B factory is under construction 正在建造建筑当中，但这看起来已经是盖好的了。An assembly line is being shut down. OK， 这个组装线呢要关起来，但是看不出来。Alright， 那我们来看下一个场景，自然景观。OK， 来了，他们在爬山嘛，对不对
A.Some people are walking along the riverbank. B. The man's walking through the woods. C. The couple is putting up a tent. D. They're hiking up a mountain.
答案呢是最后一个 They are hiking up a mountain， 其他的很多都没有讲到。第一个 riverbank 河岸并没有，对不对 ？Walking through the woods 森林，这边不是森林，这是山顶。The couple is putting up a tent， 正在把帐篷立起来 tent。没有，所以就是答案选最后一个 D。来，我们看下一题。
A. Some tents are in the woods. B. The people are fishing in the river. C. Some trees are being chopped down. D. The woman's carrying a backpack.
OK， 答案是哪一个呢？还蛮明显的。Some tents are in the woods。这个就森林了，刚刚没有出现森林，这边有了。Some tents are in the woods， 森林里面呢有一些帐篷，其他的都没有Fishing in the river， 这边没有看到人在钓鱼，也没有看到河流。Some trees are being chopped down， 这个树呢正在被砍掉。OK， 没有砍。The woman is carrying a backpack， 她背背包吗？后面并没有看到嘛，是不是？以上是我们今天的课程内容，我们下部影片见，拜拜。
See you next time.